In the previous episode, we saw how Ryu went on a lunch date with Juri and made a good friend with her. In return, she gave Ryu a rare purple crystal. Then Ryu ordered a Lamborghini and just spent the rest of the time with Wani, just chilling. And how Youngman begged the Musclehead that he wants to come inside. He wants to come under the Musclehead's team. Then the Musclehead extended his finger, pointing towards the gathered players, questioning whether something was wrong with Youngman's eyes. He remarked that everyone seemed to dislike Youngman, yet he wanted to join his team. Youngman, filled with excitement, clenched his fist and tapped his chest, wearing a wide smile. He made it clear that he doesn't care what other players think or say. He just wants to come inside the Musclehead, and he can do anything to come inside the Musclehead. Now the Musclehead was hearing this with a serious face, and after a pause, the Musclehead, with a grinning smile, replied that he likes people like Youngman, so he would take Youngman under him, take responsibility, and raise Youngman. Hearing this, Youngman was overwhelmed with gratitude, repeatedly bowing and expressing his thanks. It was truly an honor for him. Meanwhile, the other players couldn't help but gossip about the unexpected partnership. They found it hard to believe that Youngman had teamed up with the Musclehead, and some questioned Youngman's sanity. However, as they observed the Musclehead and Youngman laughing and chatting happily, they couldn't resist making remarks. They suggested that there is a saying that birds of a feather flock together, so it's not weird seeing one piece of shit getting attracted toward another piece of shit. So today's like goal is 4,700. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Now let's continue. Then out of nowhere, the angel descended from the sky with a dazzling entrance, startling all the players. She floated in the air for a moment, seemingly calculating something. She then announced that there were 90 fewer people than in the previous round. Hearing this, the players started to get confused, asking, "What does that mean?" But before they could say anything further, a quest window came in front of them, stating that their quest was to protect the purple crystal from being destroyed by monsters. Only 1,255 players would survive this round. Now, seeing that there were 90 fewer players than before, confusion and panic spread among the participants. The angel, still floating with her hand on her lips, politely explained that she couldn't go to the real world and kill anyone, as that would mean those players died in the real world for some reason. A player shouted in shock and panic, realizing that only 1,225 players would survive this time, which was 1/4 of the total players. As all the players slowly noticed it, they started to panic, and some started to scream. A player asked the angel, "Is there an error? In every round, only half of the players survive, so how?" But before he could finish his sentence, the angel burst into laughter. She started to laugh loudly while holding her stomach, her laughter echoing throughout the entire area. So there they were, the whole gang of players listening to that angel with their eyes wide in horror and panic. She fired back at him, calling them filthy monkeys and saying angels ain't no dummies. She made it clear there was no error in the rules. With a point of her finger in a cheerful tone, she dropped a bombshell on him. She reminded him that everyone had survived the last round, so it was only natural that only a quarter of them would make it through this time. That sent the already freaked out players into an even deeper panic. The angel's look turned deadly serious as she laid out the quest details. In this village, there were 4 castle gates, and every 30 minutes, monsters would start pouring out of them. Their mission? Protect the purple crystal from getting wrecked by these beasties. There were going to be 4 waves of monsters, and if they couldn't keep that relic safe, they'd be hit with a big fat penalty. To make things a bit easier, she said they'd be ranking players based on the number of monsters they killed. That's how they'd figure out the top 25% who'd get to live. And just to sweeten the deal, she dropped the monster's power by 1/3. Now, there was this Musclehead in the group, grinning like he had it all figured out. He thought this round would be a cakewalk. All he had to do was slaughter a bunch of monsters, and he even had that authority skill to back him up. Easy peasy, right? The angel clapped her hands, making sure she got everyone's attention, saying she almost forgot to say the most important thing. She stared at the Musclehead and said that in the last round, life is a documentary became the zone leader, right? So he can use the authority skill to command 10 people without any class. Then she questioned, did no one think about what will happen if the zone leader dies? And as soon as the Musclehead heard this, he became like a statue without saying anything. Then the angel, with a wicked smile, explained that if the zone leader dies from a monster, or any natural cause, like if he killed himself or fell down on a dagger and died, the zone leader's position will remain empty, and they will have to vote again to decide who will become the next zone leader. But what if the zone leader got killed by another player? The musclehead was still frozen in his position in shock when the angel continued that if a player kills the zone leader, then the one who will kill him will automatically become the zone leader, and he can also use 10 authority commands regardless of what the previous zone leader had used. As soon as she said this, all the players turned their gaze toward the musclehead with a deadly look, like they would eat the musclehead alive. Then the angel clapped her hands again, saying the monsters will appear in 10 minutes, and she hopes everyone will work together and survive. But then she smiled, looking like she was too happy, enjoying the moment and glaring at the musclehead, saying that she hopes everyone works together, but she is not sure if he will be able to. With those last words, she vanished, leaving the musclehead shaking in anger. Then the musclehead started to scream in anger, cursing the angel and calling her a bitch. However, a whisper caught his attention, and when he turned around, he noticed the players were ready with their weapon, ready to attack. Seeing this, the musclehead also took out his dagger in anger and started to shout, saying if they want to die this badly, they can come and he will fulfill their wishes. But the players didn't back down, explaining that the musclehead could only use his authority 10 times, and if they all attacked him together, he wouldn't be able to defend himself. Just when tensions were escalating, an unexpected turn of events occurred. A heavy, commanding footstep echoed, drawing everyone's attention. It was none other than Ryu, who walked past the players with a majestic aura. They made way for him as he approached the musclehead. Noticing Ryu coming toward the musclehead, he started to panic and asked, "Why is Ryu coming close toward me?" But Ryu didn't say anything, and he just walked close to the musclehead, and with a chilling cold tone said, "Don't be afraid. I'm not here to kill you. If I wanted to kill you, you wouldn't be alive in the first place. I'm here to say something to you." The musclehead just stood there with a sweaty face. Then the musclehead, still scared but not showing it to everyone, replied that he's not scared at all and he's listening, so Ryu can say whatever he wants. With a touch of arrogance, the musclehead added that although Ryu was strong, if they were to fight, he would make sure to at least chop off one or both of Ryu's hands. He declared that he wasn't scared of Ryu's threats. However, before he could finish his sentence, Ryu began to smile wickedly. This sent shivers down the musclehead's spine. Then Ryu, with a cold expression and a cool pose, hand in his pocket and the other holding his black scythe, suggested that the musclehead seemed to be in a tight spot. He proposed an offer. How about he protect the musclehead? The musclehead was left utterly bewildered and stood there in confusion as Ryu explained that he will stand behind the mushhead and protect his ass so that no one can fuck his ass up. Now hearing this, all the players got shocked, saying, "Why is Black Scythe protecting the musclehead? So if they want to kill the musclehead, they have to fight Black Scythe too, and if it is, they will not be able to face two strong opponents." This declaration sent shockwaves through all the players. They couldn't understand why Black Scythe, Ryu, would protect the musclehead ass. They realized that if they wanted to kill the musclehead, they'd have to face off against Black Scythe too, and that it's impossible to fight against Black Scythe. Meanwhile, the musclehead was listening to the whispers, thinking that just the name of Black Scythe was enough to strike fear into the players. With a somewhat unsure and cautious tone, the musclehead asked what Black Scythe wanted in return for his protection. Ryu, always cool and collected, casually replied that he didn't want much. Then, his expression turned serious as he stated that the only condition was for the musclehead to follow his orders. This condition seemed to take the musclehead by surprise, as he realized that Black Scythe was essentially offering him a subordinate role. Curious and cautious, the musclehead inquired why Black Scythe was making such a kind offer. Ryu cryptically replied that he couldn't tell him. When the musclehead asked about the nature of the orders he'd have to follow, Ryu gave a similar response, saying he couldn't reveal that either. He advised the musclehead not to talk too much and simply follow his commands. He doesn't have the entire day here. The musclehead found himself in deep thought. He didn't want to become Black Scythe's subordinate, but he feared what might happen if he rejected the offer. Would Black Scythe come after him? In a state of panic, he nervously gulped, feeling the pressure of the decision weighing on him. Ryu urged him to give his response quickly, as the other players were eagerly waiting for his answer. Hesitantly, the musclehead declined Black Scythe's offer, stating that he wouldn't come under his command. Ryu fixed him with a cold, deadly look, and the other players started to get happy, saying, "Is the musclehead dumb?" If he had accepted the offer, Ryu would have protected his ass, but no, because of his ego, he rejected the offer. The atmosphere grew tense as a girl prepared her long sword and her friend readied his spear. Slowly, everyone geared up to attack the musclehead. Ryu, on the other hand, distanced himself from the scene, stating that he no longer cared about what happened to the musclehead. Whether he lived or died was none of his concern. Just as the players were about to make their move, the system sent out a notification. The first wave of monsters would arrive in a minute, catching everyone off guard. Their priorities shifted instantly, and protecting the crystal became their top concern. The players abandoned the idea of attacking the musclehead. Seeing an opportunity, the musclehead decided to follow Ryu, thinking that whatever Ryu was up to might be a better option. As he trailed Ryu, he noticed that Ryu was heading toward the third castle entrance, which was unguarded. Suddenly, a loud sound signaled the start of the first wave of monsters, startling everyone. Slowly, the massive castle gates began to creak open, and a chilling wind swept through, making everyone shiver. The system then delivered a grim notification. 9,800 weakened goblins were approaching, intent on destroying the crystal. Panic and fear washed over the players as they stood, clutching their weapons tightly. With creepy smiles and eerie noises, the bloodthirsty goblin horde emerged from behind the gates. They looked as if they hadn't eaten in 1,000 years, their hungry eyes fixed on the defenseless players. Even the musclehead got panicked, as he himself didn't expect 9,800 goblins to come. Without wasting any time, the musclehead started to run, finding a hiding position, and started thinking, "Why isn't Black Scythe running? Is he planning to fight against all the goblins alone?" Then the musclehead started climbing a staircase, trying to go to a higher ground, saying, "Even if it's Black Scythe, he will not be able to face against thousands of goblins at a time." As the musclehead reached the top of the building, he noticed hundreds of goblins marching toward Ryu, and Ryu just standing there. He said, "Now Ryu will run with his tail between his legs, and this scene will be a sight to see." Then the horde of bloodthirsty goblins dashed toward Ryu, screaming, and Ryu prepared his black scythe. A group of goblins jumped toward Ryu, and Ryu, as cool as ever without breaking a sweat, in a flash, chopped all the goblins. He didn't stop there. Like a killing machine, he continued to chop each and every goblin into small pieces with great force, displaying tremendous strength and precision. The musclehead, on the other hand, was left speechless. Seeing this, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then he thought, as Ryu got a class, that's why he must be so strong. After he obtains his class, then he will beat the crap out of that arrogant bastard. With that, the musclehead left to kill some goblins to level up and obtain a class. He also started to kill a single goblin at a time without any issue, thinking that in no time, he will obtain a class. Suddenly, an arrow whizzed through the air, narrowly missing the musclehead's face. He managed to dodge most of it, but the arrow grazed a small part of his ear. Angrily, he began searching for the person responsible. But in the chaotic crowd of players, it was impossible to identify the shooter. Fuming with rage, the musclehead declared that he didn't know who had attacked him, but once he found the culprit, he would peel his skin off. Before he could finish his sentence, he felt a piercing pain. As he looked back, the spear guy had already thrust his spear into the musclehead's stomach. The musclehead was really angry, so he grabbed the spear stuck in his stomach and with his dagger thrust it into the spear guy, killing him instantly. However, that was just the beginning. One by one, other players began to attack him, and he found himself desperately defending against their relentless onslaught. Even if he managed to survive this battle, he hadn't killed enough monsters to avoid automatic death when the round ended. Amidst the chaos, he spotted a barbarian-like player, Black Flame Dragon, ranked third in the zone. With a cunning grin, the musclehead used his command skill on him, instructing him to protect him at all costs. Meanwhile, Ryu was doing his favorite thing, yes, bullying the goblins. At this point, Ryu had slaughtered 502 goblins, and all his stats had increased by 100% because of the Rain of Slaughter. And because of the skeleton bone necklace, his stats further increased by 25%. On the other hand, the other players were barely defending themselves against the goblin, and finally, after a hellish battle, the first round got over, and 3,933 players were left, while 936 players died in this time. Then, Ryu slowly approached the battlefield where dead bodies of players could be seen. He was searching for the musclehead, wondering if he was still alive. On the other hand, the musclehead was heavily injured, but his suffering was far from over. With the players no longer distracted by the goblins, they started to attack the musclehead. One player bravely attacked him, but his attempt was swiftly crushed by the combined might of the barbarian guy and young men. Seeing this, the musclehead was thankful that he had those bastards to protect him because of the authority of command. He managed to survive the first round. Then, Youngman asked the Musclehead in concern if he's okay, and seeing that the Musclehead was in deep thought. Youngman followed him, even though he did not use command authority on him. But then, he started groaning in pain as the wound in his stomach was too deep, and he was bleeding heavily. However, before he could even take a sigh of relief, the second wave of goblins began to surge towards them. The goblins started running towards Black Scythe, Ryu. With a serious expression, he did not hesitate to slice the goblins with his scythe. He continued to attack multiple goblins at the same time. The bodies of the dead goblins were piling up on the ground. Then, the system notified him that he had reached level 20. His rank had risen from apprentice to regular. He could now use the combination function. He wiped his sweat as he rejoiced in reaching level 20, saying that now he could use the combination function to create unique items that can't be obtained in the store. Then, another window screen appeared before him, displaying important information. The first announcement was about the strengthening of the Death Seal due to his rank increase, now boosted from 100 to 120%. Additionally, he had unlocked a Reaper-exclusive skill called Night of Death, which could create an artificial night within a 500-meter radius. Combining this skill with his Grim Reaper's abilities would double his attack power and increase his attack speed by 50% during the night. This was indeed a formidable combination. After quickly reviewing the screen, the goblins came charging towards him, driven by their bloodthirsty instincts. He welcomed their approach with a confident smile, eager to put his new skill to the test. With a swift activation, Night of Death shrouded the area in impenetrable darkness. The goblins, unable to see through this pitch-black veil, were disoriented and panicked. In the midst of this darkness, Ryu became a reaper of death, precision, and swiftness personified. He systematically beheaded the goblins, causing chaos among their ranks. Their panic escalated as they tried to flee, but in a single sweeping motion of his scythe, Ryu carved through them like a hot knife through butter. When he turned around, a gruesome pile of goblin corpses bore witness to his deadly efficiency. The system chimed in to announce the end of the second wave, giving Ryu a moment of respite. Seizing the opportunity, he opened his in-game shop, eager to spend the gold he had earned from his goblin-slaying spree. He invested in the precise location skill, which granted him the ability to sense every particle within a 30-meter radius. With this newfound skill, he was well prepared for the arrival of the third wave of goblins. As the third wave approached, Ryu remained unfazed. With eyes closed, he moved effortlessly through the goblins, slicing them down as if he were casually sipping his morning coffee. Meanwhile, the Musclehead found himself in a dire situation, forced to fend off the goblins while protecting himself despite his severe injuries. The Musclehead had been intensely focused on the front, engrossed in the battle before him. However, a sudden eruption of screams from behind shattered his concentration. When he turned around, a horrifying sight awaited him. His subordinates were being mercilessly slaughtered, and a group of aggressive players was advancing, determined to end his life. Arrows rained down upon him, and in a desperate bid to shield himself, he grabbed two of his subordinates and used them as human shields, blocking the deadly projectiles. Now only he and 3 others were left, facing a larger group of players ready to kill them. Realizing that he couldn't win this battle, the Musclehead made a quick decision to flee. He started running from the scene, with the players hot on his heels. His only goal was to survive for 1 more hour. If he could do that, he would make it to the next round, as he was already among the top 25%. However, the relentless players chasing him had other plans, and they were determined not to let him live. In his desperate flight, the Musclehead encountered Ryu up ahead. Panic overcame him, and he rushed toward Ryu, offering to accept any deal Ryu proposed. He was ready to do anything, from licking Ryu's feet to killing anyone for him. But Ryu merely glared at the Musclehead with a cold, deadly look, and firmly stated that he refused to accept the Musclehead. As shock registered on the Musclehead's face, Ryu went on to explain that he had already made it clear earlier that he didn't care whether the Musclehead lived or died. It was none of his business. As Ryu prepared for another round of bullying the goblins, the Musclehead couldn't contain his desperation any longer. He started screaming, begging Ryu to save him. In response, Ryu calmly stated that he would have considered taking the Musclehead under his wing if he hadn't already used all his authority skill charges. But now, in Ryu's eyes, the Musclehead was nothing more than trash. Hearing this, the Musclehead felt a surge of frustration and helplessness, not knowing what to do. Meanwhile, the other players behind them began to laugh gleefully, relieved that Black Scythe hadn't intervened to save the Musclehead. In a fit of intense rage and determination, the Musclehead drew his dagger, clutching his wounded stomach with his other hand. He screamed, vowing to take at least 10 people down with him before he met his end. However, at that moment, Youngman appeared from behind and, in a concerned tone, assured the musclehead that he was there to help. Seeing Youngman, the musclehead's face lit up with happiness and he gave a wide smile. He expressed his confidence that Youngman would come to his rescue and promised to reward him generously once he survived this round. But before he could finish his sentence, Youngman swiftly lunged towards him and delivered a powerful punch, sending the musclehead flying backward. Youngman, with a wicked smile, taunted the musclehead, saying, "Don't worry, I'll give you a painless death, ha 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 ha." So the episode ends here. Write part 7 and rip Musclehead in the comments. See you all in the next episode. Goodbye.